dote on you, support you.
I know.
Love you. And look at what you've done to me. You paint me out to be this monster, someone who could hurt people, who could do terrible things. But who is the monster here?
Let me start by saying that it should go without saying that Joe Goldberg is a sick son of a bitch. But some of you goofy bitches out there be crushing on this sexist serial killer psychopath, so it needs to be said. And yes, sexist. Joe despises women. It ain't nothing but sexist hate for women wrapped in the delusional justifications of a madman that leads one to think they have the right to pick, own, possess, control the lives of, and kill any woman of your choice and anybody in her support system. Anybody who in any way be thinking Joe has a point, might be justified, or is rooting for this to get away with murdering women in multiple continents because you don't like the personality of one of these bitches, you are a sick bitch. Hit pause and get some help. And no, I don't give a about Joe being nice to Paco or any good deed he did for Paco. They literally admit they only wrote that character to help the audience sympathize and root for this serial abuser. And they did the same shit with Jenna Ortega's character in season 2. None of them is in the books, so y'all can miss me with all that. The only thing I appreciate about Joe is that he often reminds us that the only reason he be getting away with this shit is because he's a white man.
People, they're easy to fool, like these cops. I'm the nice straight edge guy, so there's nothing to worry about. People believe whatever supports their worldview. You see that? Contempt. Opie just decided I'm a rich tool, and of no consequence to the health and safety of his jurisdiction. He won't run my plates.
I appreciate that little acknowledgement, which is why today we're here to get justice for the season 1 characters of You who did not deserve what happened to them, all because Guinevere Beck was unlucky enough to walk into Mr. Mooney's raggedy ass bookstore and flirt with the bookkeeper she could have never anticipated was finna decide right then and there that she obviously wants him to stalk her. Joe is one crazy ass son. So without further ado, let's get into the first season of You, which is my personal favorite season of the show because, well, I'm a New York City supremacist and also I unfortunately relate to being stalked in New York City. If you've watched my video 5 terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, super raggedy man, you know at least one of those stories. And that's not the only stalk I've had, but we're not here to talk about me. Moving on. Hold on tight because I'm about to give you the speed run of Joe and Beck's train wreck of a relationship. Joe and Beck meet at Mooney's bookstore. Joe begins stalking Beck immediately, standing outside her window, jacking off, following her to class, breaking into her apartment, stealing her laptop, her panties, her clothes, her phone, and begins watching every move and interaction she makes so he can manipulate her into a relationship using the information he's acquired by stalking her. Joe then kidnaps and kills her original love interest, Benji. Joe and Beck start dating. Beck's best friend Peach, played by badass Shay Mitchell, is rightly suspicious of Joe, and Beck ignores each and every one of Peach's warnings that something ain't right about Joe. Joe then steals Peach's book, steals Peach's laptop, tries to kill Peach in Central Park. She survives the first attack, only to eventually hunt this bitch down at her vacation home and kill her. One of the realest bitches to ever do it, dead because her best friend picked the wrong man. Ain't that some shit? Pour one out for my girl Peach.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
And I be holding out so much hope that like Peach ain't dead. Like we never actually see Peach die. And so I'm like, dog, if y'all could do something as stupid as bring Candace back, I'm praying in this last season I get a Peach appearance. Anyway, Beck gets depressed obviously because not only is her best friend Peach now dead, but they had a fight right before she died because Joe was trying to tear them apart. So she starts going to therapy. Now remember, Joe is a crazy, jealous stalker murderer, so he becomes jealous of the therapist and starts following Beck. Beck then catches Joe following her. He asks her whether she's cheating with her therapist. She tells him no, crazy, and breaks up with him. Joe starts dating a woman named Karen Minty. Beck does not like seeing Joe with his black queen, so now she wants Joe back. Joe begins cheating on Karen with Beck. Joe dumps Karen. Karen warns Beck that something ain't right about Joe and tells her he had an ex-girlfriend named Candace. Beck starts looking into Candace and getting suspicious that Candace is dead and Joe killed her. Joe did in fact beat and bury Candace in the woods and murder the cheated on him with. Beck confronts Joe. Joe gaslights the shit out of Beck and denies it all. Because Beck has rightly accused his doing some shit he knows he did, he gets re-suspicious that Beck really was cheating on him with the therapist before they broke up and decides to mug the therapist so he can check the phone and confirm that Beck had in fact been cheating, which means she'd been gaslighting the shit out of him when he asked her about it. Joe then confronts Beck, screaming at her and gaslighting her like he not still a stalking, lying murderer who also recently cheated on his black queen with Beck. But then Beck pulls an Olympic level finesse and tells Joe she cheated on him because she loves him so much and was scared to need him. And that declaration of love was all Joe's crazy ass needed to feel like they're doing better than ever before. The next day, while Beck is at Joe's house, she discovers his secret hiding place where he keeps a box filled with a bunch of shit that make it very clear he been stalking her, murdered her best friend and her ex. And in her horror at this discovery, she makes the mistake of dropping the box and it shatters. Then Joe comes home and he discovers it before she can escape. He knocks her out, imprisons her in a glass cage, tries to convince her everything he did was justified, makes her write a book, then he murders her, frames the therapist, and flees town. Season 1 might as well be called Guinevere Beck's A Series of Unfortunate Events, because listen, dog. A lot of women go through a moment where we just finished getting dragged for filth by a bad boy, so we convince ourselves to date a guy we're not particularly or naturally inclined to go for because he seems like a nice guy, the kind of guy you should like. And most women that have done that can tell you that that shit is always a bad idea. But never in the history of ever has it gone worse than it went for Beck by deciding to give Joe a chance. And if you let Joe tell it, they met at that bookstore, liked each other immediately, and had several predestined meet-cutes until they decided to be together and have a heavenly relationship until Beck's friends and her issues messed it up. But dying the truth on any level, because Beck was not on that man run. She convinced herself to give him an opportunity for a specific reason that we'll get to in a second. And let me just be clear. I knew she wasn't on this run based purely off the strength that the whole time Joe was stalking Beck before they were officially together. But she'd met him, knows him, never once spotted that obvious ass. But as soon as she was actually in a relationship with him, the moment he tried to stop following her again when he was suspicious of the therapist, she spotted that immediately. He was only able to follow her unnoticed back when she wasn't really checking for him. But that's how I knew, because I'm a real. But how we knew Beck wasn't really interested in Joe was for a few reasons. Yes, they flirted at the bookstore, but that was Beck flirting in passing. That's it and that's all. She had no further interest in ever seeing that man again. But Joe decides to stalk her and make it happen. Even after she next sees Joe, when he saves her from being hit by the train, she's not on his run like that. And let me just say, my girl Peach had her wits about her from day one, because the moment Beck told her she met the at a bookstore in Manhattan, that he was conveniently the only motherfucker with her in a station late at night in Brooklyn to be able to save her, Peach knew that shit ain't smell right. But even after that little meet cute at the train, Beck doesn't express any romantic interest in Joe, and she's busy living her life, worried about school, paying rent, her friends, and other shit. And this is a good time for us to talk about Benji, because if you let Joe tell it, Beck wasn't interested in him because she was distracted by Benji. But Joe is a loser who's never had a roster. It was clear that to both Benji and Beck, they are occasional buddies. A situationship wouldn't even be accurate. Long time on and off buddies with a toxic history because they're in a shared friend group that went to school together. That's it. And I don't give a how much Joe wants us to focus on Benji being a rich white asshole. Justice for that Benji, yeah? Because Benji ain't deserved that shit at all. Joe kidnapped, imprisoned, and killed Benji over a bitch Benji didn't give a about. Oh my God. Matter of fact, Joe killed this Benji only for Beck to immediately proceed to all the Tinder could provide her. Oh my God. Dead for nothing. Benji not only didn't give a about Beck, she was at the bottom of this roster. Let me walk y'all through the magnitude in which Benji didn't give a about Beck. When we first meet Benji, it's because he's popped up at Beck's house in the wee hours of the night, uninvited and unannounced, and Beck is round with him because the last time she saw him, they were at a party together and she caught him getting head from another gal. And from that time, they ain't talk none at all. So that should tell you, for Benji to be there at the dead of night, Beck is at the bottom of this list. No one else on this roster was available, so he say, shit. It. Let me truck it to Brooklyn and deal with a few minutes of this gal rowing, because ultimately I know she can let me hit before I hit and go home. Benji made a Manhattan to Brooklyn commute. Think about that. In the wee hours of the night in New York City, and still went home immediately. Did not sleep over. He don't rate her not at all. And Becca's not insanely into him or anything like that either. Is she giving him more energy than is deserved? Well, yes, because Benji doesn't deserve any energy. But she isn't giving him a lot of her energy. The only time we even see Beck express any real frustration over Benji is after he completely falls off the face of the earth because Joe kidnapped him and his family was worried about him and they called her, which in turn worried her. And then she saw what Joe posted to make it seem like he was just hard partying off the grid and ignoring her and her justified concern. And that's a reasonable thing for her to get mad about. It doesn't make her madly in love with the man. Benji was so uninterested in Beck that when she arrives home in a taxi cab she and Joe shared after she was almost hit by the train, they meet Benji already waiting on her because she late for their booty call. And she tells Benji that Joe rescued her when she was almost hit by the train, that she fell on the tracks. And this didn't bat a eye. Not so much as an "are you okay?" The man say this.
Babe, I told you people are basically good. Great job, bro.
Imagine getting killed over a bitch you give so little of a about. You don't give a whether she get hit by a train. Benji don't rate Beck to the point where he ain't even recognized Joe when Joe first started holding him captive. His phone password is another gal name. And when he did finally realize Joe was holding him captive over Beck, this couldn't believe it. Of all bitches.
Do not tell me that you're doing this because of Beck. She's not my girlfriend. You can have her. Take her. If you knew her, you would not be putting me in a cage and ruining your life over Guinevere goddamn Beck!
And Benji gave this all the insurance necessary to prove to Joe he wouldn't snitch on him if he let him out. But solely because Joe was a jealous hoe and Benji was the first Joe saw Beck, he figured he's the one and only because Joe ain't never had multiple pieces at one time and he can't make no headway with Beck with him in the picture, so he kill him. And even after Benji's dead, Beck is very clearly friend-zoning Joe, who has shown himself to be a boring who didn't speak on their first date and a dud she can't even take to a social gathering because when she takes him to Peach's house party, this begins questioning about why she brought him there around people he has nothing in common with. So Beck is ultimately doing nothing with Joe but mad other. So what makes her decide she's interested in Joe? After her professor that she TAs for tried to sexually assault her and then retaliated against her when she didn't return his advances by firing her and refusing to transfer, Joe supported her. Listen, I don't like Beck just genuinely as a gal. She ain't my type of bitch. Because in many ways, she's a lazy and envious person in the sense that she spends all her time feeling sorry for herself that her peers are better writers and being jealous of them, but she never actually writes or works on her craft. And she generally kind of makes mountains out of molehills in the way that she thinks things like having to do her homework or hang out with her friends and juggle insecurity is the epitome of oppression. But the one true plight Beck really has that cannot be undermined, minimized, or overlooked is that she is a repeated victim of men who prey on her. She has to deal with her professor trying to essay her. The guy Pete sends to help her with her writing career tries to essay her. Even her therapist, who she goes to because she's grieving her friend's death, the therapist takes advantage of and starts a sexual relationship with her when he know he have no business his young grieving patient. And then the man that she is with, Joe, stalks her, manipulates her, kills her loved ones before ultimately abusing and killing her. That is some sad and horrifying shit. I don't have to love Beck's personality to acknowledge how truly scary and devastating her existence was and how many women it reflects in real life. Any man who positioned themselves in her life as someone who was trying to help her, as someone she could trust, was really just trying to use her or let her down. We saw it at school, in her writing career, at home, in her childhood. Beck wasn't safe anywhere. She couldn't even count on her own father. And while I did think it was a little nuts that Beck was running around telling people that her father was dead when he wasn't, I can understand why one would consider their father dead to them if that father was an addict that abandoned them, got clean, and started another family who didn't even like them. It makes perfect sense to me. What was more problematic to me was that she didn't just say her father was dead in passing and moved on. This was something she was writing and telling stories about regularly and making it like central to her identity and making it this big secret she had to keep, which illustrated to me Beck's deep desire to have something she thinks makes her seem deep and sympathetic. Before Peach's death, all her writing is centered around the death of her father that didn't even happen, and then once Peach dies, her writing becomes centered around Peach. Nevertheless, none of that negates the depth of the abandonment she did truly experience from her father and all the men she encountered after him. We never saw Beck meet a man she could trust, and that's some sad shit. And it's something Beck herself talks about in her monologue from the book she was forced to write while Joe held her captive before she was killed.
From every boy masquerading as a man that you let into your body, your heart, you learned you didn't have whatever magic turns a beast into a prince. Now in his castle you understand Prince Charming and Bluebeard are the same man, and you don't get a happy end unless you love both of him.
And even though Peach was and is my bitch, as well as Joe is a completely unreliable narrator who has a vested interest in making Peach out to be a villain in his desperate abusive quest to isolate Beck from anyone who wasn't him, so he could be lying. But let's say Peach was doing all the things that Joe said, even some of Peach's actions towards Beck were predatory. And what's so sad to me is that it's because Beck has experienced a world where men fail her, that when Joe supports her and encourages her to stand up for herself with her predator-ass professor, she becomes convinced he's a good guy, so she should like someone who's good for her. She literally says as much.
So really, thank you. I mean, you saw something in me, and God, not everyone gets why I'm here and what being a writer means. It's the most, I mean, it's the only important thing, and you helped me to not lose it.
And that's why she enters a relationship with Joe, a nigga who gives her 8-second dick, barely speaks since she's previously screamed at for not telling her shit about his life, something he never truly rectifies up until he has her in a cage. It's also worth mentioning that of all the people that Joe killed who did not deserve to die in the name of protecting Beck, he somehow didn't lay a hand on the head of the professor than trying to essay her. One of the few people who actually deserve such a fate. So I do feel for Beck deeply, even though I don't necessarily like her. Because truth be told, I really stopped Beck when we got introduced to the first Black woman to be lucky a man did not appreciate or love her. Karen Minty. Clap it up for my bitch. Now, let's remember the facts. Beck wasn't just cheating on Joe. She was doing the cheating where you don't even like your partner no more, where you being mean. She was gaslighting Joe, screaming at him and dang. His presence was making us sick before dumping him in the street and not looking back. And I don't dislike her for doing that. Joe, he don't deserve to breathe, so fine. Him. But that is what she was doing, and she moved on and she didn't look back. And it's not even that she only wanted Joe because Karen had him now. That's not even the problem. It's specifically how she was talking about Karen, talking to Karen, and looking down on Karen. Listen to how she talks about the prospect of Joe having feelings for Karen.
He's with the wrong girl. I mean, his new girlfriend, she puts stickers on pictures. I mean, her profile, her life, it's all bachelorette parties and fortune cookies and blood drives.
What if Joe likes those things?
They're not Joe things.
Now compare that to how she talks about the prospect of Joe having feelings for Candace.
I mean, Candace. I mean, look at her. No wonder he's dreaming about her. She's got this whole icy redhead, follow me into this cave, Jon Snow vibe.
Beck has never seen Joe with another woman but her or knowing any other kind of woman he likes. But when she sees Karen, that's impossible to wrap her head around. But when she sees Candace, it's of course. Listen to what this bitch says when she intentionally runs into Joe and Karen.
Right, this is your hood.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's a hood now. Here's another microaggression for you.
Little Karen Minty, how are you? I mean, sorry, I mean little as a compliment.
And then, even after Beck knows she been Karen man all over the city, when Karen goes to talk to her, not scream at her, not cuss her, not fight her, just honestly calls on her shit, talking to her normal. Listen to how Beck tries to frame this Black woman.
Hey, look, I couldn't fill in the X shoes either. Whoever this girl is, she's still got her claws in him.
Well, this has been fun. You got to play the spiteful ex. Now let's just say goodbye.
But you know what? No harm, no foul though, because Karen Minty ancestors don't play by her. That's under normal circumstances, Joe deciding to cheat on and discard a Black woman like she's trash because he and his white gal been playing on her top would anger me.
It's over.
No, it's just commercial.
No. Us.
But that was God looking out for my sis, and she knew it too.
I won't keep you. I just had to say thank you. I owe you. Turns out you're my get-out-of-jail-free card. You showed me who he really is.
I say all that to say, Beck is not my type of bitch, none at all. But let me be abundantly clear, because we live in the kind of world where a man can be a batshit stalker, liar, manipulator, abuser, and murderer. And people would still say some shit like, well, Beck did XYZ, or I just don't like her. She's not likable. It's crazy. And could be a murderer, and then we'll be debating the bitch's likability. Ain't shit under the sun that could ever justify anything Joe does. And thank God Beck at least knew as much.
You think that you did some bad shit and that I did some bad shit and that this is equivalent? Yeah, I lied. I cheated, but I didn't stalk you. I didn't hit you. I didn't kill people. I didn't do any of this.
I didn't ask you to swoop in for me.
What gives you the right? You thought that I would be grateful?
Oh.
You are not special. You're broken. I could never love you. Rot in there, you psychotic asshole.
Beck did not deserve any of the shit Joe did to her, whether you like it or not. So let's pour one out one last time for Guinevere Beck.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
Y'all should subscribe to the Patreon. I put, for the people who want to hear me doing all my cursing, we put the uncensored versions of every recap on the Patreon. So do that.